I think Metaverse is a very overabused term. There's lots of facets around it, which are sort of necessary, definitional things of what would make a Metaverse. But at the end of the day, it's just, it is the convergence of digital and physical in a sense. But I do think a lot of it's just about, are you spending time there? Are you socializing there? What's really going to draw you there? What in the first place? Why are you there to begin with when there are so many options?
Hi Kevin, this is Ian from Block Tempo, and beside me here is the Metatheory CEO, Kevin Lin. So Kevin, can you say hi to our Block Tempo fans?
Hello, Block Tempo fans. Nice to be here today.
So as you have known, this year in the bear market, the floor price of most of the NFT is decreasing, and most of the transaction volume is decreasing too. So what's your opinion about the suggestion for the future NFT?
Yeah, I think NFT, there's a lot of froth. There was a lot of excitement in the space, but most of it was speculation and a lot of projects. It's really easy to make an NFT project. And so a lot of those kind of just went away. And that's just, early excitement in any industry. You'll see a lot of people testing things, experimenting things, and a lot of people who, frankly, come in and abuse the system and abuse the audience as well. So I think it's good to see a little bit of a slowdown because it was going so fast. Going from zero to billions of dollars of transactions per week was kind of crazy anyway. And there's a lot of questionable activity as well. So a lot of wash trading and so on as new platforms stood up. So I think it's overall fine to see a little bit of a slowdown. Obviously, a lot of people unfortunately got hurt by that, right? They lost a lot of money trading NFTs just because no one really knows what's going on, right? It's all FOMO driven for the most part. It's hard because the audience expectation was I want things now. And so hopefully, again, the remaining audience has a little bit more patience, has a little bit more understanding that value you're hoping for, that utility that you're hoping for, these things just take time. It's kind of a bummer to see it so dramatically change. It's not just a 10%, 20% swing up or down. It's really extreme. And I think that is, exemplary of, or representative of the speculative nature of what was going on originally, that a lot of people were just hoping to make a quick buck. Even though they scream utility, even though they scream roadmap, a lot of them don't actually care. They just want to make some money. And that's not healthy, right? When you have a new, really interesting technology, which I think NFTs is a really interesting usage of blockchain, being able to own something as a really basic concept on the internet is cool. I think that's really cool. And the relationship between a creator and a user, a buyer, a customer, that can exist through NFTs is also a really good potential relationship. Now, I don't know if you've seen the proper modes of that yet. You see some good usages of that, a lot of bad usages of it too. But I think the technology promise is really good. It's just unfortunate how it kind of rose and fell so quickly. But I'm still positive on it. We're still positive on it as well, and we'll continue to build it, NFTs into games as a central initial hypothesis of what is a good, healthy, understandable evolution of video games using blockchain.
Cool. So as an experienced investor, so do you think this bear market affect your investing decision? Do you still slow down your investing?
I've generally been slowing down my personal investing just because I kind of overdid it in the last 6 years, and I just started raising a fund with two partners, old friends of mine from the games and venture space. So I'm sort of focused on that instead of angel investing. I still do some angel investing. I'd say overall, not just in blockchain or Web3, overall I've been a little bit more careful on price in the last couple of years. I think the macro conditions resulting in, funding for startups becoming a little bit harder is actually really healthy for the ecosystem. Kind of sucks for founders, but people were getting way too much money at way too high valuations with not enough progress, or sometimes not even great ideas. And that's not a healthy ecosystem. So I think it was a massive bubble, very obviously a massive bubble. So I think a slowdown there is really appropriate for the health of the industry. And you're starting to see, slightly better valuations. I wouldn't say they're still sensible. They're not sensible yet. You still see new teams that haven't built anything but have some amount of experience building games, let's say, in the past, raising at like a $40 to $60 million first round valuation. That's just too high. I think, and not that some of these founders don't deserve a high valuation, but just from a sensible venture investing standpoint, they're quite high for first round. So hopefully that gets tempered a bit. But I think what it means for the industry, for builders in the space, is the venture capitalists are going to deploy more like larger checks, lower valuations, but give you more money so you have a little bit more runway, particularly in games, because games are just they're more expensive to make. They have a lot of expenses that a software business might not have, right? Art can be expensive. Narrative and sound design is an added cost. It's not crazy expensive, but art can be a very expensive cost for startups, for indie developers. So I think you're starting to see that type of investing, but it's still quite slow now, right? If people are still very careful. They can wait and see, because they know other funds aren't deploying yet. They can kind of wait and see some progress from founders before they make a bet. And even if the valuation is a little bit higher, you're de-risked now because you can see, okay, this team can actually build, not only build a product but also build a team. So I think that slowdown is very healthy for the ecosystem.
So is there any particular projects or team that you're looking for that you think is interesting?
I mean, I'm pretty agnostic on background. A lot of the bigger funds, at least in the West, look for people that have worked at Blizzard or Riot or Epic or Valve, right? That spun out, have some amount of experience either building a game or designing a game, and they'll give them money to build again. And that's good, right? Because games building experience is really important because it's just tough. You can hire that experience, of course, as a founder. I don't have traditional gaming experience. One of my co-founders does have a little bit. The other does not either. And so when we started, we're like, okay, we need to hire game designers. We need to bring on people that know what they're doing. And there's lots of them. So that's the good sign. So I think that background, while ideal, to me is not quite necessary. As long as they're capable of hiring and maintaining a team of people who know what they're doing. I also think especially in Web3, the lens of traditional game design, while critical to have, you can also overdo it, right? That traditional thinking may not lend itself well to Web3. I think you need both sides. You need some flexible thinking there. And so the perfect mode is you find a good game design lead or a game developer lead, tech lead, whatever the case may be, that believes in blockchain, understands it, really gets it, wants to experiment in it. But as with anything, it's built by a team. I'm not as picky about it. I look more for founders to, do they seem like a good team? Are they building the right way? As in, they're in it for long term. They want to build fair systems. They're thoughtful about it. They're excited and passionate about whatever it is that they're building. And then obviously importantly, do I like them? Would I get along with them? If they called me at midnight one night because they had a big question, would I be happy to take the call? So I look for that stuff, and then other factors like have they worked together before? How long have they known each other? Do they have a special access or special knowledge or special experience that other people might not have? Is the idea good? Is it described well? Does it make sense, right? That's a basic intelligence test. Can you take a complex concept and describe to someone who has no context and have them understand it very quickly? Can you do math? Can you build a financial plan, right? Even if they're all kind of finger in the air guesswork anyway, but can you break down your assumptions on what things are going to cost and how you're going to make revenue in a sensible way? Do you understand your audience? Do you know how to understand your audience? Do you know how to go to market? What is your go to market hypothesis? Again, all things that are totally mutable and changeable over time, but just can they describe these things intelligently? So that's really what I look for. And then of course it's like try to invest in friends. Then accountability is a big thing. And so if you take money from friends, you feel very responsible for that money, and thus theoretically more driven in a way. Not that the other stuff doesn't drive you, but that also is another impetus that causes you to want to be successful.
So as you see, like last year when the NFT market went to the hype and down to the bull round, the bear market, the PFP and the art-related NFT take a huge role. So for the next bull run, what key role do you think NFT will play?
In general, I mean, I think for games, it's really just ownership, right? The easy, simple example that a lot of people use is, Magic the Gathering or Pokemon. Those are games, and you own the cards. You own the cards, and you can give them to your friends, you can trade them, you can sell them, you can hold them and collect them with the hope that they increase in value over time, or not. You may just want to keep them because they're collectible. I think that is a really good relationship with the game that you don't see these days in the sort of online environment. You buy costumes, you buy cosmetics and things and weapons, and in certain games they're tradable, right? Valve has a whole system that makes you able to trade these things, but a lot of games don't have that. So I think that blockchain just makes it easier. Do you need blockchain to give your users things in game? No, not really. But it does. It's an easier mechanism. It's a better mechanism from the user perspective because they can take the things out of the ecosystem if they wanted to. And that's this interesting sort of philosophical movement within the space is interoperability. I personally think interoperability it's not going to be valuable for a while because you need audience platforms in order for that to be interesting. As in, if I have a weapon from Dustbreakers, I want to use it in another game. Chances are there's not going to be another game that would make it easy to use that thing for a while until some of these games get bigger, these systems get bigger. But for the owner for the player to be able to own that and take it, and if they ever abandon the game, they can sell it, make some money back, or give it to their friends. I think that's really cool. And then from normal collectible base, I guess where everyone's hoping things go is there's going to be some metaverse somewhere one day, and I might have a living room there, and I want to put all my little trinkets there, and so I could use NFTs to do that. I'm not as interested in that personally. I think it's kind of a cool concept, and I do think that we are going to eventually converge into this, whatever you want to call it, this digital place that we just hang out in every now and then with our friends or new friends, and you might want to display things there. But for me, the game stuff is the most interesting use right now for me. Yeah.
So as you mentioned, NFT is a huge role for like gaming stuff, but this year like Axie and Stepan they get folding, right? And people start judging about their P2E like concept. The way they design a P2E concept is kind of weird and have some problem with it. So in your own personal opinion, do you think how the P2E design can be developed in the future?
I mean, these were all designed like traditional DeFi, right? In the sense that a lot of it is about the token itself and earning the token, staking the token, lending it out, et cetera, and then people just built these basic, interactive graphical interfaces on top of it. Not that Axie wasn't a game. Axie was a game, right? It's a card game, card battler game. I don't know. A lot of people didn't necessarily think it was a great game. Some people really liked it, but a lot of people did it because of the earning mechanism. And so there's a bunch of problems there. You have people that are playing specifically because they want to earn money, right? And a lot of those people thought they could replace their jobs. That whole arc of narrative of look at what's going on in the Philippines with Axie. Your average blue collar worker in the Philippines makes what 250 US per month. Oh, they're making $1,000 a month now. You could replace your job. I think that's just too extreme, and it was built on a really thin infrastructure of economy, and it relied on a lot of external forces. I don't know that you need a token in a game. I'm not sure yet. I hope someone figures it out. We are certainly going to give it a shot. We're starting with just NFTs for now because we feel like if you do too many things at once, it's too complex, right? If you got NFTs, which are price fluctuating based on those market conditions, you've got a token that's price fluctuating based on completely external to the game market conditions where people are just speculating, right, on a stock essentially, and affecting the price of the coin that you actually use in the game. That's too much noise for your average user to understand. It becomes very frustrating if this thing suddenly drops by 50%. Well, what happened? And they have no idea to understand what happened. What they don't know is there's all these people out there that are speculating with pools of money, extracting value out of the game ecosystem that don't even contribute to the game system at all. And so it's dangerous, I think. And I don't know that, I think it's too much to do at once. Now, someone may come up with a really clever token design, and there's some people that are doing that. They come up with, sort of more ways to stabilize a token. And so from a user perspective, it's not as freaky when the price changes so much, because it won't change as much or won't change at all. Maybe that would work. But I think it's just too much to throw at a user right now. And so we're starting with like one big thing, which is just NFTs. Keep it as simple as possible and understandable as possible. But I think it's cool, and I think the concept is cool, and eventually it could make sense when these games become more complex. I think one of the key things about games, well, really economy, I should say, and will be relevant for games, is in the real world, why do you buy things? Why does a MacBook cost more than an Acer? Well, build quality, the amount of time and effort and experience and knowledge that goes into the intricate design changes that allow for a MacBook to look and feel the way it is, and for the battery to last, for the sort of the screen quality to be as good as it is, for the the feel and the user experience to be as good as it is skill. That's skill input, that's experience input. And in games, like, you need a lot of the games that exist today in Web3 don't have that. You just play, you earn stuff somewhat arbitrarily, right? The game designer just says, okay, this thing results in a token being earned by you, versus, okay, if you spend a lot of time learning how to do this thing really well, and you spend a lot of time here, the thing you get from that experience in game is a valuable thing that other people have to struggle to get. Okay, cool, then there's a sensible trading mechanism there. I mean, that's like the real world, right? And so what is the sort of skill and time input that results in value creation in a video game? When you get to that level of gameplay, I think an economy starts to make sense. When it comes to really simplistic games, I don't think it makes sense.
Cool. So not only P2E games for the Web2 gamers, they kind of oppose on it. They also think like NFTs are necessary for the games, because for them they like to have a fun game, but we don't see in the Web3 here. So in one key point for traditional players from Web2, they can accept the games towards like NFT and more GameFi stuff.
I mean, I think you just need to make it not about NFTs. Right now, your general games industry influencer base, YouTube creators, Twitch streamers specifically, don't trust Web3, and they shouldn't, because of what you've seen. A lot of people were harmed. A lot of people built really light, crappy games with the sole purpose of extracting value from their user base as fast as possible. And so it has been a really bad experience. Now, I think, so let's say you take away NFTs and you call them digital collectibles, like Reddit did. I think it's really smart the way they marketed this news. And so if you make it so, hey, you're earning this stuff, when you buy this costume now, you own it, it's yours. You could trade it, you could sell it later. And there's rarity and scarcity and so on. It just needs to feel very easy for them. Ideally, you don't have to connect a wallet. You don't have to remember your private key in case you ever get logged out. You don't have to do all this stuff that makes Web3 so complicated. And there's a lot of companies that are building tech to make it easy for game companies to implement all the transactional mechanisms in such a way where it feels like a normal game. That as long as you take all that stuff away, I don't see why people wouldn't play it if it was a good game. And so I think that is the key. Good games, fun games, interesting, engaging games that have some amount of social aspect, cooperative or competitive or otherwise. As long as it's fun, people will come play it. You market it well, people will come play it. And I think at least for now, for the next year or two, the further away you extrapolate out from the user experience, all the Web3 stuff, the better. You want to educate them, right? You want to educate them in saying, hey, you own this, you can sell it. Here's how you sell it. But you don't talk about the NFT stuff. Might be the smart way to do it. I'm not sure. NFTs itself as a phrase, as an acronym, as a marketing vehicle, is good in the sense that it's sort of easy to understand now. Most people know the word NFT, but I don't think you want to overemphasize it necessarily in a game. You want to emphasize the ownership part. These are things you own. X, Y, and Z you do in game results in ownership. Everything else doesn't, right? Maybe, but I think that's going to be the key. But you're right. It's really about building actually normal games, fun games, good games.
So do you think the technology right now for the Web3 developers and the Web3 gaming industry are ready for it to create a fun game?
Oh, there's nothing you need about Web3 to make a fun game, right? All that technology is more underlying. So I'd say the user experience side is really important. So I think it's getting there. Yes, there's a lot of cool technology companies that have built good UX for onboarding and an ongoing relationship with the blockchain. And some game companies will build that themselves. But it's just not that important to maintain that. Good to have someone else focus on that and build that as a software as a service type of business. To your point, okay, the speed and the cost of stuff is getting better, but it's still. Someone asked a question earlier. Well, is it really Web3 if not everything's on chain? It's just infeasible to put everything on chain right now. It's too slow. It's too expensive. It's unnecessary. And so, what do you put on chain? I think the things you would need to put on chain and interact on the fly is not a lot. And so you could build a normal game and just make sure that the key ownership pieces are on chain and thus transferable and so on. So I don't think there's anything there right now really that won't be solved in the next few months that prevent a good Web3 game from being made. It's just the game part is the hard part. Right? Making a good game is very hard and very time and resource intensive process.
So as you mentioned about user experience, and we have like Minecraft the game before, and this year we have Metaverse. People are getting excited about Metaverse. So what's your ideal path for Metaverse in the future?
I think, okay, so I don't know what the Metaverse is. I think it already exists today. And I would say though, if you're trying to build a Metaverse or a Metaverse-like experience, right? And I think I would define that loosely as it's a digital environment where you hang out with people. You need to have stuff to do. And I think you've seen a lot of attempts at creating the box without anything to do, and there's no stickiness, there's no engagement, right? There's no real reason that you need something like that. Now, you've got kind of cool products like GatherTown. I don't know if you guys have used GatherTown, but it's like a 8-bit simple top-down video game like Zoom experience. Basically, you walk around with a little character and you can bump into each other and talk, like in the real world, except for in a tiny 8-bit version. It works for them because they're largely used for meetings or events, right? There's a purpose to be there. Like you rebuild your office inside of this space, and so there's a purpose there. But a lot of the big Web3 ones especially have not really seen too much traction in that way of retained user engagement. For us, how do we converge onto that? We build great game experiences and then build wrappers around that, right? So you come in to play this game, and then maybe through that we introduce you to other games and eventually build a wrapper. Roblox is another good example where they started with this kind of open system, but then they had developer tools so that kids could build games for each other. And so you might go into Roblox, but you go play a specific game with your friends, or maybe you'll explore other things. But generally you're there sort of somewhat purposefully to do something, not just to sit there and chit chat. And there's other, there's Zepeto and other high-rise where it's all about, sort of collecting things, and then you might sit and chill and talk to random people, but there's this sort of collection mechanism built around that. That's the core action and engagement mechanism for the users. So I think you just need to figure what that out, what that is going to be for you as a builder. Any founder any team needs to figure out, okay, what do we care about? What's exciting for us? What would we engage in? Build that, and then get people to start using that, and then you can expand out the metaverse, quote unquote, from there, where people might just sit there for a little while, hanging out. I think at Twitch we learned an interesting thing, which is, at least at first, this was before Discord existed. Even if a creator wasn't live, people would sit in their chat. Their fans would sit in their chat room and chat with each other, even if the creator wasn't live, nor was the creator there participating in chat. They would just hang out there. And so the creator, as sort of the centerpiece, the campfire, resulted in a community that was sort of always on, right? They just lurk and chat, or they might actually communicate with each other. And that became this hangout space, right? The hangout was normal, like, they talked about anything, but they were brought there because of the creator. So I don't know. I think metaverse is a very overabused term. There's lots of facets around it, which are sort of necessary, definitional things of what would make a metaverse. But at the end of the day, it's just, it is a convergence of digital and physical in a sense. But I do think a lot of it's just about, are you spending time there? Are you socializing there? What's really going to draw you there? What in the first place? Why are you there to begin with when there are so many options? And so I think games as a gateway into that totally makes sense. You're going to want to have stuff to do there, not just sort of empty canvas of nothing. So I think that's where our hypothesis at least is on the onboarding into that is video games.
So like a platform like Twitch and YouTube, they have encouraged a lot of content creators, like the last 10 years, right? And do you see there's a possibility for decentralized YouTube or Twitch channel to get more Web2 people to Web3, like more content creators?
Yes, I think the technology makes sense. It does make sense to those types of platforms. Is it necessary for the user or the creator? No, right? These systems all work pretty well already, and creators are making good money from YouTube and Twitch. But it does allow them to build a deeper relationship with their customer, right? And so if you think about, I'll use Patreon as an example. Patreon is this really cool, sort of almost like middle technology, where they're platform agnostic, and creators can just make money directly from their fans by doing stuff on other platforms. If you use Web3 there, that membership, that subscription that you pay might be more like an NFT, and it's as the creator grows, if you were one of the first to support, your NFT might increase in value because you get all these cool benefits, blah blah blah. Like there's good simple usage, simple easily understood by the user, by the fan, usage of Web3 in those platforms. The more complex stuff that a lot of people have tried, like Rally, like BitClout, etc., on the social token side, that's really complicated. And I don't know if people are quite ready for that. And so we'll see. There's lots of cool attempts at this. There's a product called FreshCut that's sort of like a TikTok, Instagram with the donation mechanism is based on a token instead of cash or in-game currency, soft currency. So we'll see how stuff like that goes. My feeling though is, at least for now, same as the answer earlier on what is a token's place in video games, a token's place in a creator economy. Creators want stability. That was one of the biggest pieces of feedback we got early on from our creator audience at Twitch, was because advertising was such a big part of the revenue for creators, and advertising fluctuates in so many ways. It fluctuates in terms of what they call CPM, which is dollars per 1,000 impressions. Some months it's $10, some months it's $100, some months it's pennies, right? So you're following the advertising cycle. Advertising cycle obviously is affected by macro conditions like recession, like inflation, etc. But it's also seasonal. And so as a simple example, at least in the United States, in December, there's a bunch of advertising spend. And so not only does the amount of money you make as a creator per 1,000 views goes up because they're willing to pay more because there's more competition for eyeballs, there's also more volume fill, what they call fill rate. And we used to pay out on a percentage. We started off paying a percentage. So we gave creators 50%, very similar to YouTube. But creators kept telling us, hey, like, I don't know if I'm gonna make rent some months. So in December, I make all this extra money, but I spend it because people aren't taught how to save. Then January, everything plummets. Fill rate plummets, CPMs plummet, and their payout is significantly lower than it was in December. They don't like that fluctuation. So this is just a simple example of like, this is the real world. This is the real people who are trying to earn money doing something. That fluctuates too much, they're gonna freak out. And so we changed it to a flat CPM. So we suffered. We got lower margins in some months and higher margins in other months, but it made the creator feel stability. If you have a token fluctuating constantly, they don't know how much money they're exactly gonna make from a platform, given the same amount of time input and the same audience level, that's going to be very frustrating for a creator. And so I don't know. I think a lot of things have to change before that can really happen, where they feel that stability. But I do think NFTs make sense for creators, at least from a simple standpoint. From an easy, how do you communicate? Well, if you buy this thing from me now, I'm going to do stuff for you. You can come backstage to my events. I'll play games with you. I'll give you a free t-shirt, blah, blah, blah. And if you transfer this to someone else, they get all the future benefits. You no longer get it. Makes sense, I think, right? So I think there's, good, simple use cases that are untapped so far.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, like advertorial stuff, like ads, advertising, they make the platform earn a lot, right? And the users, like content creator, they didn't earn that much. Do you think if there's a new platform coming out, they use the decentralized mechanism, like they make the profit allocation more clear? Do you think they would attract more people to come in there?
Oh yeah, I mean, profit allocation right now is a big controversial topic, right? I think, I think Web3 has gone too extreme. I think 0% royalties is just, that's you're getting back into the real world right now, right? Your average artist right now, if they sell a painting, they get that upfront payment, and that's great, but they don't see any residual income. And that was sort of one of the, I thought one of the more cool philosophical things about Web3 was, okay, artists can continue to make money, they can continue to subsist as they get bigger, as people trade their products. I think that's really cool. You as an artist then think a lot about your early adopters, you think a lot about the value creation that your community together with you can do, but that's now raced to zero, and I don't know. I don't really. It's very confusing. It's a very confusing community in that sense. But I do think that overall, I think the traditional technology companies are taking too much money. Right? Everybody thinks this, I think. Apple, Google take 30%. That's a lot for just pushing bits around, pushing electrons around. That's a lot. Now, obviously they provide value, right? Apple and Google Play, they provide a lot of value in the sense that they are an audience network. They are a giant audience network and can get you eyeballs and players in the case of games. But is 30% fair? Twitch, YouTube, on the advertising side, take a big chunk of 50% plus of advertising revenue, and in Twitch's case, we set the bar at 50% when we were small and we had all these crazy costs. Is 50% of subscriptions fair these days? I don't know, especially when there's competition for with products like Patreon and other off sort of delivery platform product platforms. I don't know if that's going to stay, but I do think the transparency around it is really interesting, where everything is, seeable. You know what people's contracts look like because they're published, essentially. Maybe results in more honest and open conversation around what is the right model. Platforms need to make money. They can't not make money. I think everyone thinks somehow platforms are just can magically exist with no cost. That's just not true. Businesses need to be able to make some amount of money. Is it 5%? That's probably too low. Is it 20%? Maybe. Is it 10%? Maybe. Is it 30 to 50%? I mean, it worked for a while, and great ecosystems were able to be built on that revenue share assumption. But maybe it's time for that to change.
Yeah, I think that's all. Thank you, Kevin.
Cool. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Can you say bye to our Block Tempo fans?
Bye, Block Tempo fans. See you later.